There you are.
There you are.
I
Got a nice.
might not need this headphone at all. Let me.
Oh, I can hear you. Got a nice little cleanup.
Thanks.
Good.
Give me a second.
Handsome man of Jay. Always leading them astray. Bat all the fine ladies away.
So test your audio real quick. Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3. You are now on this camera. I just bought a new one.
Yeah.
It's supposed to provide more of a
It looks good.
it's supposed to, it has two mics on both sides of the camera itself.
Oh, really?
So the sound.
I was trying to. I got this one Canon camera that was kind of looking sort of sexy, but I wasn't really able to rock it all too much. I
Well,
needed
just
to.
like your sound will come.
Sorry.
I'm just trying to maximize your sound.
Oh yeah, that's good. Dig that. My my best sound was when I was using my specific sort of sound equipment in sort of ways. But sometimes what I've been doing is in my post, I've been just putting these narration filters on in my because I'll go back and I'll edit just in GarageBand, and then that just juices it up a lot right there. So I just kind of I've been dealing with it more in post as opposed to input. But anyway,
Okay. Well, I am switching to headphones.
yeah.
Because I did notice on my side that it's much better this way.
Cool.
All right. Well, how you feeling?
Man, I'm trucking along.
Good.
Yeah.
Uh,
We just finished basketball season. We made an attempt at it. We kind of had a little something, and we out. So,
well, I'm glad that you know you have amazing experience to bring on to the next level. So next year, everybody will have their COVID stories. You have yours, and then the kids might be real jazzed to like come back. They're like, I'm still doing this even when it was scary, but I'm doing it now. I'm keeping my training up. Maybe they're gonna be even more jazzed.
I know, man. That honestly, there is a definite air of momentum that we got.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. That's what
Very
I'm thinking.
good up.
Hey, Michael Larry.
Hardware.
My Larry.
Um, well, where did we leave? Well, how are you doing? How are you doing?
I'm good. So I was wondering if we could like restart, try to do something. I don't know if you really love the whole splicing thing, but honestly, I could just say what I was saying in a shorter way as background because it seemed like you were kind of closer to an interest in the last few years, where I thought you were more like interested in like how the Lawrence family made it to becoming as a disability household, as a household with.
Jay,
So
all of it,
which one did you
man.
want?
All of it is incredibly valuable.
Oh,
Yeah, man. I all I was doing, I think, is for whatever was remaining, um, just just points of interest or whatever. But believe me, Aretha and Leonard and Alay's early life and your early life story is gold.
okay, good. Uh,
Nothing, nothing left.
okay.
So whatever you want to do. I mean, we could do a retake, and I can kind of piece together what I want to piece together, nonetheless. Or if you are cool with just uh, picking up where we left off. Hey, ball's in your court, my dude. It's your story. I'm just putting it on a little platform for it to be heard.
Got it. Um, I think we should keep what we had and then find a way to conclude it. Um, the I'm not sure what we talked about as much on the second call, so that might be what we have to redo.
That might be. That might be. I think that was definitely, as I recall, that was more of popping out of Amherst
Oh
transition there for your life. It was shorter. It was 10 minutes,
yeah.
12, 13 minutes, something like that. Um,
Hmm.
let's just actually get into it.
Well, tell me about real quick. You just did a post this morning. What was that about? What it was a poetry thing, something
Yeah,
like that.
man. So uh, I put that out a couple weeks ago, and then I had messed up something, and I just felt like forwarding it to you if it captured your interest.
It
No,
did.
I ripped off a poem, um, and I used to go perform it in like slams and stuff, but I thought that it worked really well with this work that I'm doing right now, and so I remembered a previous poem by a poet called Underdog, and he has like these really striking lines about kind of putting you to an empathetic experience of someone who has dyslexia. And
Yeah, that's what I heard in some of it. Yeah,
I encourage you to check that out.
yeah. I was listening
So
to it
I
just now.
I kind of did a little project of kind of putting them together. I made a blog entry about sort of my analysis of the two of my poem and his poem, posted the two poems, and then I did a whole podcast where I had a recording of both her poems with my narrative in between or at the end and the backside, sort of analyzing them or comparing and contrasting them. Um,
Okay,
and then there's some other little piece of it I can't seem to
it's okay,
figure
but
out. But
but that's what you got. It you got. That's how you went deep.
yeah, hey man.
I was listening to it, man. I was listening to it this morning, and I was like, oh, you know what? I want to hear all this. Um, and so, leading into this interview, I just wanted to give you like you know, uh, the 411, giving you some even new information that just happened even just this week. So
Okay,
here we go. So
follow.
um, can you just um, introduce the what are the interview the show generally? Can you just do that thing real quick? It'll help me get my head in it.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, welcome, welcome. Sky's the limit and beyond. This is your host with the most, Ryan McGarrett, coming at you with our flavorful flirt friend in the West Coast, Mr. Jay
What's
Lawrence.
up? Yeah. Hey,
Uh,
Ryan.
yeah, man. So what we've done here is this is kind of a part three of our conversation around Jay's life. He and I have a strong, strong, strong friendship. Um, and I consider him a personal hero for myself, but also he's also a hero of the community. But I don't want to talk about his story too much. I'd rather let him tell it. So right now we can either we're honestly we're trying to make a decision here of if we want to rehash and recap and have a nice clean one shot of a Jay story, or if we want to just pick up and kind of do a part three. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to lead in with the question to Mr. Jay Lawrence of,
Okay.
what is your story and how do you
Yeah.
want to tell it right now?
All right. Well, I think I'm really happy to be here, and I think that it's really nice to talk about the how my personal story connects with my family story, And the family members involved are my two parents who have now passed, and my grandmother who passed away during COVID. And then, most importantly, how my family was uh, just so focused for the last uh, over 40 years um, on the care of my sister, who is developmentally delayed from birth with cerebral palsy and um, has kind of like a affect of a happy 2 year old, like 2 or 3 year old, forever. And so she is kind of the center of my world. And I'm about 12 years younger than her, and um, she is 47 now. So, what I wanted to talk about today was just how I um, weathered the 2008 time period in our family, um, and then jumped to more recently our our pandemic lifestyle, and then close out. So basically, in 2008, we all know that the economy just crashed, and those 2008 graduates like myself were facing an economy that just was essentially didn't exist
Yeah, worst time
suddenly.
in college.
And so, what was really powerful about going to school at Amherst College was that as my father was ill um, and had dementia suddenly, aphasia, I guess is what they call it. They gave me a added scholarship to kind of restart my junior year, and so my junior and senior year were with their knowledge and support of making sure that my sister was okay, my mom was okay, my dad was okay, right? And my grandma was actually in a nursing home just starting at a nursing home in that time period. So it was really head of household time for me.
Mm.
Right then and there, at the end of my senior year, I had transitioned my sister to a board and care uh, um, group home situation where I could administrate and help the with my sister's finances and care, but with the 24/7 care that she deserves, right? And that group was called Alpine Homes in Redwood City, and they've been doing amazing work for many decades before that. So it just worked out perfectly. Two African American women own that company and work really hard to staff it with people who have the patience and time to watch over my sister. That's what allowed me to focus more and finish school. I think that I don't know how I would have been able to do it otherwise. My college, Amherst, is 3,000 miles away. It blows me away that I was able to do this, but it was through county support yet again, because that's the regional center's side of the work, but then there's also the care of my parents. My mom was also disabled for the last uh, about 15 to 20 years prior to that. So she had cardiopulmonary hypertension. She's sitting there trying her best to fight her fight with edema and that's inflammation from water retention to cardiopulmonary hypertension, where your lungs and your heart are not working as efficiently. So now you have trouble just doing exercise or walking around to from the car to your from your bedroom to the car and back, things like that. So imagine that the county comes in and provides in-home support services, and IHSS I hear all over the Bay Area is the hero to a lot of family stories. Just the absolute hero work because and luckily they're unionized. So that's SEIU. I don't want to say the number now because I don't want to get it wrong, but I really appreciate the fact that not only is this caregiving work there for families that are in poverty like mine, but that it's unionized as well, so that those people who work in this in caregiving on a day to day basis have their own advocate. Um, Eventually, I got through my degree, returned home, and as I started looking at doing my job applications of the time, looking at the what was available, who was hiring, it was very scarce for someone who wanted to work in the social sciences, someone who wanted to do research. All of these research institutions are suddenly hard up on their funds and have already had staff for years. And so their staff that have existed for like a couple of months or a couple of years, only a year or so, they're downsizing even those people who have already been hired. So let alone how would they pick up an average college graduate right then and there? So I realized that I needed to take the time to work on my family and help them with their nutritional needs and getting them to their doctor's appointments, which were many and various every single month. So what worked for me was to work for IHSS directly. So I did the in-home support services work and was able to take a part-time job um, at a local middle school. And being able to care for my parents directly and yet also have that outlet of working in the community in East Palo Alto was exactly what I needed. I'm a high school graduate of Gunn High School in Palo Alto. That's a different city and a different county, even though the names between the two cities are East Palo Alto, where I lived, and Palo Alto, where I went to school. So imagine you're not just on the wrong side of the train tracks. You're on the wrong side of the train tracks, the El Camino, and the freeway. So in the Bay Area speak, that means I was really poor, but I was going to school with the richest and the most funded educational system um, around, hands down. And
California, let alone possibly the country.
that's right. My high school was top 100 in the country and continues to be so. Um, and being a graduate of that experience of going from first grade um, all the way through high school, um, sitting on a bus for an extra 30 minutes more than any of the other bused kids into that school district, it really focused my work. And so I graduated with a degree in Black Studies, uh, focused on the history of education and how to teach students um, physical science, especially students in the urban environment. So went on to work in this middle school um, as a academic dean rather than a classroom teacher or an after school teacher. So the opportunity there was that I could work with the students who had the greatest need and had just gone through all of the negative um, demerits and consequences in their classroom and needed to be basically walkie-talkied. Mr. Lawrence, Johnny needs to have a walk with you kind of situation.
Yeah.
So that was my job. I was the person to call, literally. And I knew that that would increase my knowledge. What was that?
Reinforcements.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it would increase my knowledge of the school system to really get to know the students where the school finds those students having the greatest difficulty, right? And so I that was a good place for me to start out. I loved that experience so much that that's how I applied to become a Citizen Schools, um, a AmeriCorps fellow administrated by a program called Citizen Schools. And I did that purposely so that I could continue to work in that middle school, but full time.
Mhm.
And so that's that growth that I'm talking about. Is that we're it's it's like a finding a rose growing out of concrete.
Mm, absolutely. I hear that.
That's an image I've held for a long time through my studies in urban education at Amherst.
Yeah.
And
And I know that like
yeah,
Tupac was one who more or less like famously said that. Do you know if that
yeah.
rose growing from concrete, if that is perhaps an idiom from prior to his use of it, or
I would actually be okay with thinking that it started with Tupac and
right?
that education researchers have used it ever since. But I don't know exactly. But isn't that great that like we have art and music informing the social science discussions, right? That's what's so important. Is we always got to say, remember, this is all the same planet. This is all the same world. So that all of these things are interconnected. And so, yeah, Citizen Schools said, you know what, we'll take you all the way to Boston again, all the way to Massachusetts again, train you for a little bit, but I guess it was like a couple of days, and then send you right back to your own community.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'll do that if you're gonna mainly
I think we're
pay
in
me
Boston
by
for 10 days.
saving up for college.
I think we're
What
in
was that
Boston.
again?
I think we're in Boston for 10 days. Yeah.
Oh, it was 10 days. Yes. Yeah. You remind the listener how you connect to that.
Well, that was the fateful 10 days where Ajay and I first met, made acquaintances. Because I was platooned to be stationed in the same community in the same school as Mr. J. Lawrence here. And as fate would have it, we had an immersive experience for learning some not only like a crash course of pedagogy and inner city at risk kind of um, educational basics, but then also just what the heck our mission for closing the achievement gap really could look like and what Citizen School's purpose was, and trying to take all that in by all means.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it, that and then actually arriving and participating, but not only that, but testing resilience and impacting school communities and kids' lives and each other's lives creates
Yeah.
quite a special bond, and that's why I don't think it would take a whole lot to be broken for sure. And man, I mean, I think about how formidable those times were, and
And the grit of the kids. I mean, they're the heroes too. They decided to uh, uh, their parents and them decided that they needed more from their education, right? And so they extended the learning day, and we had the opportunity to teach them in that extended learning time. And the best part about it was that it wasn't babysitting as much as that is important in many different households. What we were doing was truly extending the learning day for those kids so that they transitioned at 3 o'clock to another classroom at their school, and we were standing right there ready to go with all of our stuff, ready to pull it all out of our cart and put it all on the wall and get ready to teach them what they needed to learn to catch up even more, because most students in this school district um, are right about a year and a half to 2 years behind grade level in all levels. English especially, and math especially, right? So I mean, it was great to be able to teach English language arts to them, and supplemental math lessons to them, and then also to make it fun though, right?
Yeah, we made it fun. One of the other keystones of what we were doing was providing a space and sort of a connection point of professionals that were either in and around the community, um, that were actually Google employees, Google
Right.
engineers, or uh,
Facebook or whatever tech,
social
we
something art.
Silicon Valley.
Yeah, Silicon Valley. How can we? And that's what it was. Is I think that system schools in general had a strategic um, ability to find communities that had some proximity to resources, and basically like the things that you describe your gun equivalent community having
Gun
complete
high school, yeah.
access to, and giving them as much of that as we could humanly do, within
Right.
our abilities. And some of the light bulbs, the connections, the beliefs, uh, the being able to actually see themselves um, becoming the things that we
Whatever they
talk
want.
about, the things that the kinds of like someone who goes through the Palo Alto school district, or the Boulder Valley school district goes through, just inherently it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to
Right.
go to college. Oh, you take for granted that you
Right.
have any possibility to just be doctor, lawyer, teacher, whatever you want to strive to be. But that is not what is as common in a Ravenswood school district or Oakland
Right.
Unified school district, right?
Right. And the school district really wants this too. They believe, as another nonprofit in East Palo Alto said, their favorite statement is, high expectations lead to high achievement. So these school districts leaders really want to make this happen for their students, but they know that ultimately there is a financial difference between what they have as to work with compared to those other school districts around them, right? And so that's what's so powerful about bringing these programs to schools in need directly, and we just need to keep that going. And so I just feel like I was so lucky that in 2008 through 20, I think it was 2013, I was involved in all of that work in East Palo Alto, and just getting us into the next phase in my life was going on to living in Oakland,
Mm.
and you know, realizing that I wanted to continue to do this work, and also falling in love, right, and really trying to create my own household. So I started out on Lakeside in Oakland, amazing opportunity to live in right next to that beautiful real estate area, and but at the same time continue to do the work we needed. And so as a Black Studies major, it's important for me to look at the trends and the demographic shifts, and I needed to be in Oakland to really see and work on my ability to teach students who were of African descent as well. And I used that background and experience in East Palo Alto to really help me learn more about teaching in Oakland. And I would say that why I'm here to talk to you is just to inspire people to realize, like, they their context may be really difficult. Like, for example, me with my having so many family members to care for, and growing up all my life knowing that I would be the caregiver for my own older sister. Though those kind of adversities, we have to use them as assets,
Mm.
right? Cultural capital, uh, um, creating your own space of solutions is so important. There's policymakers, there's politicians, there's your advisor, your supervisor at work or in school. All of them can do things to help you, right? and they need to do those things, right? But we also have to come with the knowledge, our self knowledge. So I came to those different tables where those people had the higher power dynamic over me, right? And
Mm.
I showed them what my capital was. I always knew what I had in my tool belt, and I was saying, please help me add to this. Um, as opposed to just being very lost, very confused, just angry, scared. We can be angry and scared, but we have to also show our toolbox at all times so that someone can help you with filling it or improving on the tools you have in that toolbox. And
Mm.
that's my big thing that I'm getting out of so far in my life. And I was so happy to work at Oakland Tech, learned a lot from Oakland Tech, and in terms of teaching physics to 12th graders and um, learning about um, how different it is to be a part of a learning community.
Yep.
So that means I knew all the other science teachers in the school district because we all had our professional development meetings, and they took the time to keep mixing us up so that we weren't just sitting with our classes or our schools, but at times we would mix and meet and talk with the other people from the other schools about pedagogy directly. And I thought that was amazing work. We were sitting at in the Oakland Zoo, free access, and they had a special like classroom location or
Really?
offices and classroom location. We just got to chop it up and learn together.
That's so cool, man. So, and remind our listeners. So you were, correct me if I'm wrong. This became high school science that you were then teaching and participating in, and
Right. So moving from middle school to teaching high school,
yeah,
single subject, and then surprisingly realizing that I was in the right space in the first place as I started to work with the Exploratorium Teacher Institution,
yeah,
beginning teacher institution. They made me a fellow, and I was like, okay, what can you support me with? And they were like, we could help you in the high school level, or we could help you in at the middle school level, but we have a physics senior advisor to the entire museum that's on deck either way. It's up to you. And so I actually worked with that person to figure out what I wanted, and it was actually eighth grade physical science. It's the physics class that I want to teach, and I do, I have experience with at the 12th grade level, but at the eighth grade level, it tends to be more about the science directly and less about the math and the math education that is getting those students ready for their college time. Honestly, you spend also a lot of time writing recommendations or helping the students with their college applications. And I worked a lot in that kind of service and work in the in Foundation for a College Education in East Palo Alto, but I wanted something different and yet familiar. So ended up at Edna Brewer Middle School. And still, this is in Oakland, and still you're sitting with a education community once again, but this time I had the fellowship money from the Exploratorium, and that was amazing to be able to work as someone who is working my way out of poverty. I felt so ready to talk to eighth graders about their world, about their pain, about their joys, and what they want to do in life,
yeah.
and their current bumps in the road. Because there's big bumps they hit around seventh and eighth grade. They get depressed because they're finally smart enough to know how much how much has been stolen from them
Mm.
as as being in that zip code,
Yep.
as being as going into a department store by yourself and your parents aren't around and someone's following you to make sure that you don't steal something, and you just came in there just to buy socks. You know, that's those kinds of experiences for students um, uh, was ubiquitous. Like they all had their stories, and um, I think I'm really good with working with that age group because that's really what it's about, is trying to get them to say, yes, that sucks, and yes, this isn't fair and right, but what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
And as a social science, you know, undergrad and major,
Training.
I really had more tools to talk to them about both the inequalities and the steps that they can take to get out of it. And so that I really love teaching eighth grade because of that. Seventh and eighth grade are need teachers like that,
Hmm.
you know.
Absolutely, man.
Um,
You've got to.
so what are your readers? Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say you've got a gift. Um, I think in that way, in terms of connection, having both enough empathy to know what it to see what it's like to be walking in their shoes and know what it's like to be walking in their shoes, but then enough um, uh, ability to understand that it's necessary to push them perhaps out of comfort zones and to be challenging and to be nurturing in with a little bit with tinges of tough love, because understanding that all of that is critical and important for one's development. What I kind of, I guess my one question I would ask is, do you feel, where is that in your life that you feel you've developed that for yourself? Because for example, for myself, I think that my it's very similar to your stories of different adversities. It's my father was an alcoholic. My mother had to work two jobs. My brother had especially,
Exactly.
having all, and especially these all of these sort of challenges. There's sort of multiple ways to go about it with one's life, and there's caving in and being so defeated about all of it, or there's, just like you said earlier, turning your adversities into assets.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that that's what I truly have come to, why I am someone who has been told that I have a gift or am so natural of a leader with kids and with
You
young
really are. You
people.
really are. That is very much so what I would say as well. And you're right that I could say a little more about that. Is that it? When your leadership development and um, processing our own traumas
Mm,
have to go hand in hand, because I've had bad leaders in the past in the education sphere who, what made them bad was just simply that they hadn't finished processing their own traumas,
you're right.
and so it would leak out every once in a while.
Yep.
So that's where I agree, is that we are more responsible because of the leadership roles we end up in,
Mhm,
for students or for any other kinds of jobs where it's service oriented, where it's public facing.
mhm,
So when we're public facing, it does feel like a stage, a performance sometimes. But as long as that part of the performance is more about the language codes we use, and making sure that we're answering the questions that are given to us by parents, students, staff, people around us, um, that we're being more authentic because we've also taken the time to really think about, meditate on whatever the word is for you, our true history, our true um, traumas,
mhm,
and then also from that remind ourselves of what we learned from all of those moments.
mhm.
So that's where that toolkit, setting that out on the table and looking at those. It's hard to look at all of the tools in your toolkit because what goes along with it was the work that it took to put those tools in there.
Yep.
And that work is where the trauma came from, or the difficulties come from. The just knowing that you needed to do at least XYZ just to respect the history of your mom and dad in care of your brother, or just to respect in another moment you'd think, oh, just I need to at least do this just to respect all the work of my other brothers who taught me basketball, who taught me how to become a coach. On top of that, I need to, I'm going to do a couple more shots today at the end of the day today because I can, and I know I need it, and I know it's good for me. That is a skill to realize, oh yeah, I got more. That's a LeBron level skill, right?
Mm.
I got more time. I'm gonna put it in. I'm gonna put in the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's putting in the time, right? I guess that's the other thing we didn't talk about yet. Is just like the idea of putting in the time. So, what do we practice?
Mm.
I love that little like it was like an Instagram or TikTok thing that went around. It was a little kid from India, and he stared into the camera with big eyes, and he said, "What do you practice?
Mm.
What do you really practice? Because that is who you will be, and that is who you are."
Wow.
And the way he said it, and he said it multiple times, "What do you
Mhm.
practice?" Right?
Mhm.
And it perfectly
Mm.
um, shows what people can do to, like, change, improve, and also respect their personal history. And so, yeah, I really hope that one day that I can become even more of a leader in life. Um, but we also I took a break.
Mhm.
That's the last thing, which is to say, is that my other part of the story is I really took a break from education entirely so that I could finish saying goodbye
Mm.
to my last two extremely um, sick family members, as because they were my dad and my grandma were passed in the um, same 15-month period, and I knew that that was going to happen. They were both at that point. Um, so saying goodbye to them was, and of course, you know, 5 years prior to my dad's passing, my mom passed, and so that was hard too. Um, and but I had those other family members to rely on, and was held to, right. I was able to hold my grandma about it, hold my dad about it. But this last passing of my dad and grandma, it meant that when my grandma so frail at 93 years old, 92 at the time that my dad passed, I couldn't really hold to her the way that I could
Mm.
with my mom passing, right? And I realized that I didn't need to teach this year, and at that point, I realized I needed some time for myself to reflect, to focus, and I could afford to. I had been careful about my money so that I could, in fact, take a break and just do a couple of hours within that gig economy, as they say. I was doing maybe like 5 6 hours at most in any given day, and I didn't have to do it every day. I did it only on like Monday to Friday, and it allowed me to take a little time to really say goodbye
It's important.
and sit next and go to those two nursing homes where my grandma and my dad were. They were in separate areas of the Bay Area, so I had to get there, and then I drive down, 101, for 45 minutes or so before I could get to the other one, and I'd sit there and I'd talk to them. And in my grandma's case, I was reminding her of her own story, just telling her own story again, telling her who she is,
Mm.
because her dementia was just that high. And my dad's dementia was different. It was more like he had become more like a teenager in
Mm.
affect, so I could talk to him, just talk to him. But ability to talk back was difficult. So it was a one-way street for most of those conversations. Um, and I realized that, if I was teaching during that time, the the reality is teachers don't work a 40-hour week. They teach as long as their eyes are open.
Yeah. Hey, that's the way to
you
put it.
know,
That's the way to put it.
that's 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 the job, right? So
Yeah.
I wanted to pour all of my time into that later. And so I'm very interested in, as we end here, like I just wanted you to know, I'm ready to go back to school, work on a master's, and hopefully, be a principal one day.
For real?
And what I know is that I took the break that I needed when I needed it, and I'm good to go now, ready to go with all my toolbox,
Wow.
well, well crafted. I know what I have, I know what I need, and I know that even that last statement, I know what I need, isn't really true.
Mm.
I don't, a truly wise person knows that they don't know everything, right?
Hey, that's
So
true.
there's also whole things that I will acquire and learn in the next couple of decades that I didn't even know I needed.
Yeah,
So
man.
that's my plan. That's my arc.
I love it. I love that, dude. Um, I'm looking forward to the journey then.
Yeah, man. It was good talking to you. I should go soon. Did you have any last questions or?
What we didn't really talk about just now was impacts of pandemic. I feel that
Okay.
you had maybe a few words you wanted to share on that.
Yeah, just
Maybe
how
that
the
that would help even kind of transition to how you even kind of came to this new newfound ambition that you've got.
yeah. So in the pandemic we have isolation and also uncertainty,
Hmm.
and lastly, um, we have anger.
Yeah,
I feel like these are three things that like every person has experienced in the last year and 1 month,
year, month, yeah,
and I found myself um, in quarantine the first week that the pandemic hit.
yeah,
Quarantine
yeah,
in a Maryland hospital
yeah,
because because all of a sudden the only area in the United States that had an you know unclear history of how someone ended up in the hospital with COVID was the Bay Area. It was just us because the whole and maybe that little mini fire in Portland, I think, a nursing home or something like that. But that was it. It was just Vallejo, I guess, somewhere around Vallejo, and I had symptoms that they weren't sure about. So I missed my flight. I decided not to even go to not to even go to the airport, and I went straight to their Kaiser facility and submitted myself because they weren't sure how long the virus susceptibility begins, ends, and also how you can when you're spreading it and how long you're spreading it. So I just thought, you know what? I have the savings to miss this flight. I have the power to make sure that I'm not a super spreader in this moment because they don't know so much about, there's so much they don't know about this virus right now. So they put me in a hermetic room for 6 hours. The guys were wearing the suit with the all up and down uh, jumpsuit with
surgical
the.
covering, yeah.
I mean, this was like the movie Pandemic. It was exactly the same suit,
Outbreak.
and or Outbreak, yeah, yeah, and they they were testing me. They checked. They took some blood samples, And they said to me honestly, this pandemic is so new and this virus is so new, we don't really know, if we don't have a direct test yet clear,
Yeah.
right? So it wasn't even about
What were your
doing the nose swab, right?
what were your symptoms then? I don't even recall. I remember us having a conversation. You were sick.
Yeah, yeah. So the symptoms were, well, I mean, some of them, you don't really want to talk about on the radio, but but basically you're not feeling good in your digestive system, let's just say. And then also you're having headaches, and you're having I was starting to have a fever, and I was throwing up in the morning. And then it was that morning that I was feeling that, um, what I was supposed to go on a flight that evening.
Yeah.
So I just canceled all of that. And what was great was that in those 6 hours of isolation and them, trying to think of ways to test me, they ended up with doing an x-ray on my chest, looking at whether I was having a respiratory viral issue versus a different kind of viral issue or bacterial issue. So it probably was just the Philly cheese tour,
Yeah.
and trying Philly cheese is, Philadelphia's great. Everybody, seriously, I love the tour.
Yeah.
I love Philadelphia. I just think that I was having a lot of food options on this foodie gastronomic tour, right?
Yeah.
And I think I picked up something at that point. It was about 4 days, 3 to 4 days prior to this illness feeling. So it's likely the foodie tour. But by checking my X-rays and checking my chest and finding that I was less congested than I am in this conversation,
Yeah.
um, that it was just a combination of my seasonal allergies and some bug like that. I stayed in
Well,
uh, Baltimore for another 5 days just in case they could find something in my blood work, or they change their mind and they want to call me back in. um, and it turned out to not be COVID. They did not need to bring me back in. They were okay with the work that they did to make sure. And that's what I'm trying to say about this time period, is that there's also a lot of anger with all of us, right? Because we know that this was happening 4 months prior in China, and our government wasn't getting ready. They weren't getting ready at all. They were just like, oh, it's over there.
they didn't keep us
What do you
safe.
mean it's over there? We have airports, people.
Yeah.
And so that's where that anger is, and that's where everyone has it, when we think back to that. And so, I think, but then we also have to figure out how to get past it, right? So once again, um, coming back, I got financially solvent for the first time in my life. I paid down bills that I really needed to focus on, and by sitting at home and being in lockdown in California, I was really blessed to be able to say, yeah, it's time for me to like just look back at all of this and really reflect. And that's why I was able to talk about things that we were able to talk we just talked about in this interview, right?
Mhm.
And um, when we work on our financial stability, we also start to feel a little bit better too, right? So um, I was healthy enough to finally start to go for runs safely, right? Still, we had to do all of the things to make ourselves safe, right? But in Oakland, our mayor has shut down certain streets purposely to provide more walking space for pedestrians. So I've been losing weight. Honestly, for the last 12 months, I've been consistently uh, losing weight from fat and gaining weight from pure like
Most.
muscle gains. And now I'm lifting professional. Well, with a trainer now, but I'm
Really?
lifting weights directly and doing that whole CrossFit thing. So that's my arc for the pandemic is like realizing like, oh man, I have to really look it within and process the anger we all have, but then also like we got politically motivated. Um, Tried to make sure that if I was going to a march that I stayed pretty far from other people,
Yeah,
always
freaking
double masked.
out.
Yeah, because Oakland, we had a lot of protest opportunities, as it were. We had a lot of people come out, but then we also tried to keep it as safe as we could. But it had to be done. We had to make statements when we did around Black Lives Matter, chiefly. We have just lost too many people of African descent, such as myself, who just from walking down the street at the wrong time and in the wrong place. And there shouldn't be a wrong place and there shouldn't be a wrong time to be a human being.
Fucking said it, dude.
And so all people matter to me, and I want them all to be safe and happy and have well being. But no one can be safe if an entire population of people who are brown are not safe. And that's what Black Lives Matter means.
Hmm.
So I'm all for it, and I love the outcry, but I also love the follow up. People are still involved today. It's not just a one time flare up, and there are the fact that the Megan was it Meghan Markle or
Michael. Oh my God. Yeah, this.
oh, that interview with Oprah. Oh, I was sitting there in tears. I haven't finished it because it was so hard. But I plan to do the rest this weekend with my girlfriend when I finally see her. That's the other thing. I've got into a relationship in COVID, and I'm wonderfully in love. It's been 5 months now, and just imagine trying to meet somebody and date someone on a video chat, right? Just doing video chats every night, and then trying to figure out how to like sync up our streaming services. But we made it work. Every once in a while, I'd use DoorDash. I send her my our wine or dinner, and we just make it work, man. And so that's the fun part of the story is that we have the innovation coming out of the adversity. Yeah,
Man, love it, dude. Love it, man. Love you, man. Um, I know someone's gonna hear this, hear your story, be inspired. Um, and I'm so glad that we got a chance to capture it, dude. Always, you're a big brother to me. You are a you're just someone to look up to at all times, man. And I just
respect.
I love you till one of us deuces. That's how it is. Um,
Beyond that.
I'm real appreciative that you gave your time to my cause, my Sky's the Limit group, and I'm sure that they'll be grateful for it too.
It's a worthy cause. I hope to tune in some more and listen to the other things that you put up there. That you put into the world.
Thanks, man.
So in my Buddhist practice, we say Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and I, bless you and hope that you continue to bring peace to the world.
Hell yeah. All right, brother, man. Hey, have a
All
good
right,
rest of
peace.
your day.
Okay.
I'll catch you.